Testing 1, 2, 3. Yes, the sounder is working. The microphone is working. And guess what? I'm working too. Hi, this is Stan Houston for Interesting Ideas. I have talked about my friend Bob, who passed away suddenly, and I have been asked to speak at his service to give a bit of a testimony, kind of a story about him. And I will be doing that, so I'll be leaving tomorrow, and we'll be in Tennessee on Friday for the service. I'll probably put the programs together during that time or by that time, and we'll continue on. But this will also let me do a brief intro to a lesson that we all need to learn. As I said, I've been asked to give a brief, and I will do that. They said 10 minutes. Well, I guarantee you I will not go over time and tell my story about my friend Bob. Well, as I said, that will lead to this lesson and then a further lesson about attractiveness. That's part of the program for today. So, program, it's ready. So let's begin right now. I've been doing performance coaching for well over a quarter century. One of the first exercises I learned to put in place was the one that Peter Drucker, the world-famous management consultant, taught me. And it was this. He'd been doing, obviously, he was the top consultant around the world. And toward the end of his, you might say, his formal career, and when he was then kind of segueing into working primarily as a volunteer for nonprofit work, he made a simple statement. He said, I've come to the conclusion that I will not ever really be able to help a business or a organizational leader who cannot answer this question. How do you want to be remembered? Now, that's a question where I took and said, okay, someday there's going to be perhaps some remembrance of you, some service, funeral performed in your honor or in celebration of your life or in your passing. And what do you want them to say? When you're dead and gone, what do you want them to say? And then remember, every day you get up, do something so you will end up that way. How do you want to be remembered? A very powerful question, and it's a question that I have continued to answer myself, and it has helped me to make a number of very difficult decisions, I hope for the best, because it's not important necessarily what people think of me today in that moment, but perhaps in the long run, in the long arc of things, and by the people who really matter. My family, my friends, my close colleagues. How do I want to be remembered? So that's a little bit of what I'm going to do, is I'm going to tell people the story of how I remember my friend Bob behind the microphone. So let's see how that goes. Well, you think about that now. Think about what you want people to say when that day comes for you, and inevitably in some way, of course, it comes for all of us. And then Peter Drucker, a modest soul with more than modest achievements, did give credit to the fact that he was not original, that an ancient writer in the Christian tradition, St. Augustine, basically asked that same question. How do you want to be remembered? Well, let that sit on your head for a while, and then we'll continue with the rest of the program. And I guess I'm going to be taking the challenge from you about describe the person that you would tell us about, that you would describe as very attractive. Tell us about a person who you would believe in your experience, was very attractive. So I'm going to do that as the program continues right now. Well, of course, I'm going to play it safe in many respects. And first of all, I'm going to choose a man, not a woman. I have a number of women who I could put in that category, but I'll leave that for another time. This is a man, and the man has now also passed on, so I won't embarrass him in any way, but I'm sure that he would be happy to hear what I'm going to say. Bill passed away just a few years ago. He was over 100 years old, and he lived a long and prosperous life, and he made an incredible difference in the lives of many, many people. And in some ways, when I kind of put down my list of the people who I admire, he is there. Please keep in mind that the word admiration and attraction are related. You are attracted to people who, in some way, you usually admire. Now, that may soften the idea for you, but it's a very powerful word, a very powerful way, because as one of my mentors said, Stan, you might become more like the people you admire. So be careful. I met Bill after he had retired, and he'd had a significant life. He had come to kind of help out in the missionary radio work that we were doing down in the Southern Caribbean, and he was a retired, he would say, declared as a pastor, though he wasn't formally that anymore, but as he would say, that's part of who I am and what I do. And he took himself not very seriously. We didn't have to give him all kinds of fancy titles. He would just say, even though his name was William Hoke, just call me Bill. And we would do that, Bill. And occasionally we might say Pastor Bill, but just Bill. Had a fascinating story. He had planned to go and work in the incredible, difficult world of India in the 1940s, and he got stuck. That's right. He and his wife, Mary, had planned to go and work as mission workers in India. Well, World War II got in the way, and so his mission to India got held up by a couple years, but as soon as the war was over and it was safe, he made his way to India. He met a number of people there. He actually met Gandhi. He was very much involved with some of the people who were helping to build after the terrible bloodshed. You talk about a civil war, but what happened when finally India received its independence from Great Britain? A battle broke out between the Hindus and their nationalism and the Muslims and their national. And it was bloody by the millions. Eventually, it led to the fact that India was carved up, and it was not just India, but the country of Pakistan was invented, which was primarily Muslim. And the little country of Bangladesh was a part of that, which was a breakaway of part of Pakistan. Do you see how messy the world gets? It's not just in our particular country or that particular country. The world's always been a little bit messy, and because of that, as my other mentor, Scott Peck, said, life is difficult. It always is. Bill did a great deal of work there, and his primary work was in training and teaching. And he had a number of men and women. He was very open to that, really above and beyond the feelings both in India and in terms of the world at that time, in teaching them. But he had to cut it a bit short, because even though he had been there for a number of years, he discovered that his own parents were going through a very, very difficult time, and they had been farmers in the Pennsylvania area. And so he knew that his parents needed help. And of course, there was a commandment which said, honor your parents. And so he did. And so he and Mary left India, and he went back to help care for the farm and for his elderly parents. Well, what's he going to do? Well, he took a job. His job he took was teaching special education children. Now, that is a calling unto itself. And now that I have a special needs grandchild, I can admire even more what I knew. And he did that for a number of years. Special needs children, particularly the younger, the kindergarten, first, second grade. That's what this big, strapping, tall, good-looking, by the way, always well-dressed. He was the proverbial, old-fashioned, classic gentleman, not only in the way he carried himself and the way he, presented himself, but also in the way he dressed. He dressed himself. Did a nice job of that. He seemingly had that. His his Mary helped him out a bit, just as my Karen helps me out a bit. But that's what he was. And he was also very, very good at just one-on-one, listening to other people. Much of his work was not necessarily preaching to the masses or to the small groups. It was simply his ability to be very, very present and very, very calm and very listening to other people. And oftentimes he had that unique way, which I tried to mimic many times, of not telling people what to do, but helping them discover on their own what they should do. They oftentimes came, say, tell me what to do. And he said, well, let's talk about that. And they were able to discover on their own, perhaps, what they should do. That led to one of my favorite sayings, which is original with me, and it goes something like this. A truth told is good, but seldom heard. A truth revealed has greater yield. But a truth discovered is best of all, and a truth imposed is no truth at all. I can give you more about that. But he was the one who said just exactly that. I'm not here to impose my beliefs or my ideas on anybody. I'll help you discover that significant knowledge for yourself. After the time when Mary died, and that was another thing, he not only mimicked, he more than modeled what a good caregiving man should be about. Mary was actually just a year or two older than him, and her health had never been good. And obviously, in her later years, it was more than difficult. And then she was on dialysis for a good long time. Bill was there, and particularly what made him attractive was how he cared for his dear wife. Now, we oftentimes think of, the woman being the caregiver for the man, as that's oftentimes the case. But he was in good shape. She was not. And his caregiving for his dear wife was incredible until she passed on. And then he, obviously, in the retirement village, he was a very attractive man, just simply in who he was and what he was. And eventually one of the other widows in the place they lived was able to find him and talk him, as he said, she talked me into getting married again. and then he would, with a twinkle of his eye, said, but she didn't have to talk too hard. Bill Hoke, William Hoke, a man of deep faith and a man of incredible attraction. So there, I've done what I've asked you to do. tell you a story about somebody that you find attractive. I'm Stan Houston. The program is Interesting Ideas, designed to help you gain insight. That's right. Perhaps gain some influence, make an impact, and in the world today, be different and unique. We'll be right back. There we go. Okay, think about that. How do you want to be remembered? And if you'd like a little help with that, we've got some ways of helping you come up with that. And then as one young woman said to me, I'm not going to think about that for a long, long time, but you know what? Every time I have a business transaction or a business meeting, I'm going to ask myself, how do I want to be remembered about that meeting, that sale? That service. How do I want to be remembered by them? Again, you learn more here by accident than most places by design. And then, would you continue the story of thinking about the people that you find attractive, people that you might admire? And please think about, hey, Stan, I'll tell the story. Reach out to me at stanhouston@gmail.com, stanhouston@gmail.com. And we look forward to hearing your story of men and women who made their mark because they were truly, in the best sense of the word, attractive. All the best to you. Bye for now.